You're praying and recapping, according to this.
Dude, I got to get you in here more times. I mean, you got to say more words in one sentence, or this and that. Okay.
So, do you want here? I'll put this here.
So Jacob, if you haven't seen any episodes, Jacob's the man of little words, but when he does talk, it actually is really good. Like Megan told me that, she goes, he needs to talk more because he makes really good points and sounds really good when he does. And I'm like, Megan, I've been telling her that for 3 years now.
Yeah.
Like
It's been 3 years.
No, it's been 2 years though.
That's wild.
It actually, yeah. I was thinking about that today. I was like, it's been like 2.5
But
years.
none of this
2.5
would happen
years
if it
because
wasn't for Jacob,
we
though. You
started
see
in
all the-
March.
Yeah.
the stuff
Yeah.
he does. And so
2.5 years, almost 3 years.
that's wild.
It is wild.
That is so wild, dude.
Let's get started.
We're back with another episode, Faithful Responders. Pretty excited today. We've got
Man,
one,
I am.
we got one of Scotty's former captains.
Yeah, I
Is that right?
fooled him.
Yeah, he fooled him.
Yeah.
Yeah, tricked him into driving a couple hours, which shows some pretty good commitment.
Oh, actually, yeah.
You promised chicken nuggets, and I don't see any.
I also sent him an itinerary that isn't ours. It's a different one, so you have no
Here,
idea.
check
what
it.
you're
That's
Check
all
it.
right.
I'm just
I'm
kidding.
about to get on Grubhub.
What?
You getting some food delivered?
How long did it take you to get here?
2 hours, 2 minutes.
What?
Yeah.
Holy cow.
I mean, I'm in ball ground, bro.
You never. Well, no afternoon traffic, dude. Yep, you're right.
You shouldn't, dude.
Golly,
Well, thank
man.
you for making the trek.
Yes,
we
thank
appreciate it very
Thank
much.
me for my service.
You're gonna need a car service when you get back
Yeah.
home. Your oil change will come up.
Yeah, that's it. Fuel stop definitely gonna happen.
Hopefully, it's worth your while, and hopefully, we get some good stuff out of it.
I'm excited
Yeah,
to be here.
absolutely.
I appreciate y'all having me for sure.
Heck yeah.
Well, before we get going, we're gonna kick it off with a word of prayer. Okay. Jesus, thank you so much. Thank you for just getting us all here safely tonight. Thank you for just the opportunity that you blessed us with to do this time and time again. Just to talk about you and how you affect our lives and our faith and how that plays into our service to others on the job and off the job. Lord, we love you. Bless this time and keep us safe on the way home. In your name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
So yeah, we last episode we actually had one. We had Clint's captain on, Captain Weldon. It was actually kind of funny. I was doing some editing on that episode earlier today, and I couldn't remember his name, and I was trying to save like a title of the episode, so I just saved it Captain Crunch.
Oh, you need to put it as Captain America.
Captain America.
He loves Captain
That's
America.
That's a good one. But anyway,
That way I can make fun of him too.
we got into some really good discussion on that episode. Talking
Absolutely.
about just, I mean, to be real and raw. I mean, we got into like some traumatizing calls and stuff, and we got into some talks about mental health and suicidal thoughts and
Yeah.
but just not only that, but recovering from that and kind of rebounding from that. And Scotty got into his experience with that as well, and man, it was just
Crazy
it was-
episode.
Yeah, if you missed it, you need to go check it out for real.
Yeah, when it comes out, like it's pretty good because like I've never heard anybody talk about what my experiences were, and I've been vocal with mine with people, but I've never had anybody who actually experienced what I was going through. And then he started talking, and I was like, "What the heck?" Like,
Yeah.
it was crazy.
Well, I think I was listening to a couple of y'all's episodes, and I don't know if it was y'all's show or somebody else's, but I heard someone make mention of they felt like they had like a divine forgetfulness And I feel like, again, I don't know if it was y'all's show or if I was listening to another public safety broadcast of something, and I felt like I've had that because there's a lot of times I've ran calls and I've had guys go, "Hey, you remember when we did this, this, and this?" And I was like, "No, I don't remember."
Yeah, we've talked about that before.
I think that was
I think
Ellington's.
Weldon actually
that's-
mentioned that too.
and that's
yeah.
I think it might be what
Yeah.
it was, but I was listening to that. I was like, "There's other people out there like me," you know. And I really feel like that's something that the Lord has kind of put a veil over our hearts when that happens. I mean, granted, there's some stuff that I'll never forget. There's certain calls that I could remember the scenes, the smells, all the senses are heightened.
Screams.
But then there's a lot of stuff that that I feel like I've been kind of just I forgot.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, it's it was really cool though, because he literally experienced like pretty much the same thing as me, and when he was saying it, I was like, whoa. So definitely check it out, because it went into a direction that and it came out of nowhere too. Like we hadn't even got to that point, because we had in this season we have started kind of, because we know that people really want to hear our experiences. So we've been like, going through things and trying to figure out what would really intrigue people. And one of the things that intrigues people is actually listening to the calls and what we're going through and stuff like that. And so I've never wanted to ask anybody, about their calls, because I've always told people, if you ask somebody to go, like, what is your worst call? I tell people, in the public, if you ask a fireman or police officer that, you're asking them to remember like the worst thing.
Why do they feel the need to ask, what's the worst thing you've ever seen?
Yeah,
and I'm
like,
you don't want to.
Yeah, because it's like it's almost like a trauma thing coming back to you sometimes. And so, but we open it up to where we say anything funny, and then funny or crazy or poop call, or if you want to dive on in, which every guest that we've had has pretty much gone into a really serious call, which means that they're kind of wanting to talk about it or get it off their chest. And it's been very crazy how it's kind of gotten out of nowhere. Like, it's like they start talking, it's like, whoa, they chose that, So
nobody would make eye contact with them anymore.
yeah. Yeah, but it's very just I guess, I don't know, like,
Therapeutic for them.
Yeah, and it does seem that way, and you can also tell like it's very challenging to talk about too. So, usually, a lot of times too, what we do is like a verse of the day. So, I think Clint's gonna do that, and then basically what we'll do is I'll introduce our guest, and then we'll go from there.
Cool. So I knew I had it today, so I went to my Bible app, and it gives me a verse.
He said, "I knew I had it today." I sent it to him early, finally.
Yeah. So I was like, man, what should I do? And I was like, shoot, this verse today, I like it. I'm gonna go with it. So it's Galatians chapter 6, verse 9. Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. And so I'd like that to be the verse, but I also want to kind of dive in a little bit. So I'm gonna go back to verse 7 and then kind of read through it. Do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows. Whoever sows to please their flesh, from the flesh will reap destruction. Whoever sows to please the Spirit, from the Spirit will reap eternal life. Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. Therefore, as we have opportunity, let us do good to all people, especially to those who belong to the family of believers. I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah, no, both those verses are good. The first one you read is something that I deal with a lot, because I tell Megan, especially in this world, when you and I know everybody in here probably has felt this, like, we're servants, and when you are trying to serve so much and you're doing so much, and then it's like you're not seeing, like, it's almost like it's like, I tell Megan, I'm like, man, babe, I just feel like I'm doing all of this and there's nothing. I'm not seeing anything out of this. I'm trying to, be an influence this person, and they don't even care about Christ, or they don't care about, or you're like, I'm doing all this stuff, and then I'm just getting beat down by somebody else. And that verse right there, it's one of my verses I always like try to go back and read, because I'm like, man, why? To me, that's like saying like, I'm not putting my whole trust in God, because I know that God's going to bless it. I just got to keep up. But you know what I'm saying? Like, it beats you up sometimes.
I love that verse, and as soon as you started saying it, for for the seniors at our church, because we're involved at our youth at our church. They asked, several of us leaders to give some advice, and I quoted that verse. And then it was funny, Ansley and I were actually talking on the way over here, and I heard you say the word "so" several times in that passage. In that book over there too, the Walking with God book that I read, John Eldridge describes the decades that we have. And your 20s is a decade of discovery. You're trying to figure out who you are, what you want to do, who you want to do life with, and settle down. But then he talked about the 30s, and I don't know how old you guys are, but I'm pretty certain I'm the oldest one in here. But
how's it feel, Scotty?
He still has a good head of hair. I don't.
But he talked about the 30s is the sacrificial decade. It's a decade of sowing. All of y'all have kids in that age where it's like, man, we are wide open. Mm-hmm. We're nonstop. We're going, 10 different directions. You hear the burning from both ends, and so if the 30s are your sowing, your 40s is what you reap. And so it's neat. And so and I thought about that on the way over here, and I didn't want to, give you the best thing that I had. So it's like, all right, thanks for having me. We'll see you.
Yeah, see you later.
But no, it's just that verse is perfect for it, and that's like, that's definitely a life verse that we could live by.
Yeah, that's good. What do you think, Jacob?
I think, the biggest thing that I got out of that, I think I actually read that this morning. I don't know. That's kind of crazy.
It's crazy.
But just, I think you mentioned it too, just kind of having that patience. Because, like, for me, that's what it's come down to.
Holy cow, Jacob! This what?
Yeah.
I hadn't read this yet.
Yeah. And that's the biggest thing I got out of it was just like having patience. When I don't have my phone because it's recorded.
So in the group text today, Jacob sent.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. God.
Jacob likes to send us randomly. He'll send out little things that what's his name that
from you.
What you send out? The guy's name?
Yeah, Coach Bowers, Coach Troy,
and he'll send out some things really inspiring words and verses and stuff like that.
Yeah, like devotionals, kind of. Yeah.
So,
yeah. But anyway, the biggest thing that I took from that today was
the amazement on Clint's face right now.
Yeah, he's
so
he's like a kid at the toy store.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so it's totally different.
Yeah, and I hadn't had a chance to read through that yet.
Yeah.
And when you said that, I was like, I wonder, and I went back and looked, and it was the exact same.
Yeah.
Verse. That's pretty cool.
Are you on the Bible app?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I read it this morning. But yeah.
Oh, well, dang.
That's all right.
You mean y'all have the same Bible app?
We have the same Bible app. That's crazy.
It's not as much of a coincidence as I thought it was.
But, still,
No,
anyway,
but that's cool.
But yeah, so basically the biggest thing that I took from it was just, having the patience, but also persevering and, not giving up. Like you said, you could be somebody that you're investing in, you're not really seeing anything. But you just never know.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's the same, like we've talked about before, there's a slow fade into darkness or depression or a bad mental state or whatever, or falling into sin. It doesn't just happen overnight.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's the same the other way. Jesus can choose to do that if he wants to. He can choose to flip that light switch and automatic, change somebody's heart like that. But I feel like a lot of times it takes work. It takes
absolutely
perseverance for sure.
Well, if anybody's farmed in here, it definitely takes work to sow anything.
Yeah.
Because, I'll go ahead and introduce him. This is what we call the meat and potatoes. I'm going to introduce a guy that I've always looked very highly upon, and the first time I worked with him, he was a lieutenant, and when I met him, he was a lieutenant in Cherokee County, where I used to work, and then now he's a captain in Cherokee County. And I was going to ask him if you remember the first time that we met.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
That's one of those divine forgetful things
You
I'll tell
might.
you about maybe.
I guarantee you when I tell you what happened the first time we met, you'll remember that.
Okay.
Okay.
See, this, I love these because someone's like, hey, you remember this? No, I don't, but tell me the story.
No, I like your honesty. Thank you. So this is Captain Keith Berryman, and he's a guy I look very highly upon. I've always really just loved your attitude, your encouragement. You have always been a great voice when it comes to trying to help people out, encourage them, make them feel good about yourself or themselves, and it's just been really cool because in the fire service and in police, I guarantee the same thing. There's a lot of guys who just like tearing people down, and then there's guys who are trying to build you up, but they're not. They're tearing you down, and then there's guys that like they lead by example and they don't say nothing. Well, Cap is he's none of that. Like he basically can do all. Like he leads by example, but also he's very good at you're very good at like really boosting people. Like I was a rookie when I first met him, and like he treated me with respect. Like I mean, we talked about, I knew my role and all that stuff, but he wasn't a jerk to me and like all this stuff. And I worked with him a couple of times because I got floated out there from Station 1. And so, but the first time I met you, okay,
Can't wait.
he goes, I walk in, he goes, hey, Brooks, you know, and I had met him in rookie school, like here and there, but the first time I actually worked with him, because we didn't work at Save Station. And you were at 6.
Yeah.
And so I went out there and he goes, all right, well, get on out there and start checking the truck off. I'm like, okay. So I get out there and I start checking the truck off, and I'm on the back compartment, and next thing I look up, I'm like what is that? And I look up and there's smoke coming out of the middle of the engine. And I'm like, the heck is that? And so I'm like, okay, whatever. So I keep on checking, and then I'm like, and I look up, and then there's a lot of smoke coming out of the engine. And I'm like, holy crap, I think the engine's on fire. So I run in. The driver's already done checked the engine off. He's in there, you know. He's just basically trying to say, hey, go over your truck, you know. And I go, and I'm like, hey, I couldn't find the driver, and I was like, hey, LT, I think the engine's on fire. And do you remember this?
I do.
And so
Was it the tender?
yes.
Okay.
And so then dang, who was with you that day?
I don't
Glasses. He has glasses. Older guy.
know. Morrow?
Moro.
Okay.
And he comes out, he pulls that thing out, and sure enough, like,
It's smoke showing.
yeah, the engine was on fire because all the conduit and like something had overheated and caught all the conduit and like the rubber around the wiring on fire. And there was like all this droppings in the bay. I was like, oh my gosh.
Never were you allowed to come back again.
Because then we had to like take the little rescue truck down,
Yeah.
and we had to like do all swapping, and I was like, oh
Good
man,
memory of that day.
yeah. It's like, man, I was like, man, they're never gonna allow me to come back. I like this place because I was at Station 1 running like 10 to 12 calls a shift to go into the hospital all shift.
The jewel of
I
the
wanted to
North
go to
is-
6 so I could just chill. But yeah, that's the first time I actually worked with you.
I remember that now. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but anyway, so we usually start off like the first thing we ask is just to tell us a little about yourself. You know, who you are, where you work, which is Cherokee, but you know, stuff like that, like how long you've been doing this service, and you know, basically where you're from or raised, et cetera, like that.
Okay. So, 47 sounds old to say, but in here in the studio, I have a 21. What is it? How old are you now?
42.
42. Youngin.
Oh, please give me a break. This guy.
Stuff starts hurting after 45, Scotty, I promise.
It's already hurting, bro.
But yeah, we've been, Erin, my wife, we've been married for 22 years. We have 3 kids, almost 21, almost 19, 2 girls, and the youngest is a boy. He's 15, and we live in Ball Ground. I grew up in Marietta, and I started working for Cherokee County when I was 20 years old.
Oh, dang.
Back in 98. So, so it's been 27 years that I've been with Cherokee, and we got married, moved to Canton, and we got a small little farm now in Ball Ground. So 2 hours from here, actually. So
2 hours and 2 minutes.
2 hours, 2 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but
Think
yeah,
about it. I used to drive out there every.
I was
third
actually
day.
telling Ansley that. I said, he lives out this way and was driving over there every third day.
Yeah.
But that was your choice.
Yeah, it was. Well, actually, you never heard a story about that. It wasn't my choice. When I decided to get on with fire service, I prayed about it hardcore. And I told God, I told the Lord, because I got let go. I mean, I got turned down 3 times right off the bat. Like, to where 2 of them, they didn't even ask me to come back to do a PT test. I was like, yeah, dang. And so I was getting kind of
Can you blame
depressed. Yeah. Come on, dude. So I prayed. I went home and I prayed to God when I got refused from Rockdale for the first time, and turned away. And I went home and I prayed to God. I said, Lord, I don't care who it is. I said, I'm going to put in an application at every department that I can within 100 miles of my house. And I was like, and whoever gives me the first opportunity, I'm going to take it as a sign as that's where you want me to be. And then on the 4th try, Cherokee's the one that gave me an opportunity. So that's how I ended up out of
That's
there.
awesome. That's funny.
So, and then it was 82 miles from my front door. That's what it was. And they reminded me. Chris King reminded me of that every single shift.
Oh, I bet he did. Yeah.
And then he'd do the rundown of like, you're spending 25
like
days in 3 minutes. And so, but yeah, so that's cool. Marietta,
where it's better.
Marietta.
Yeah. So you grow up. My parents got divorced when I was 12. Fun fact: I was raised in the Mormon church, and so grew up as little Mormon boy Keith. And so
I bet you're really nice though.
I
Mormons are the nicest people in the world.
I can't say we anymore because I'm not in the church, so Freudian slip there. But they are. No, absolutely. Anytime, I've told Betty, if you met a Mormon, they're probably one of the nicest people you've ever met. And, my mom, it's a generational faith that they have. And so that's what I was raised in, and I didn't know any different until my parents got divorced, and my dad got saved over at First Baptist Woodstock. And, one of the things about growing up in the Mormon church that I can say is that, they really stress a fundamentally moral life. And so, Coke was not an option. Sweet tea was not an option. Coffee, my parents didn't drink. So you got to think if those things are taboo, the other things, like I didn't struggle with alcohol. I didn't struggle with partying. I didn't struggle with, girls in high school in the sense of going too far because, I was going to hell if I had a Coke. And, so if you were raised like that, it was, so even, seeing my dad, so I joke, after my parents split up, the only drug problem I had was I was drugged to this church and then I was drugged to that church every other weekend. And so going to a Baptist church compared to a Mormon church, the best way I could describe a Mormon service is the word reverence. So, it's just they really have a big emphasis on making sure your service is reverent. So like you could go up and, sing the best, most beautiful song that we've ever heard. Tears could be streaming from our eyes, but when you're done, not a soul's going to clap. It's just because you don't want to break that silence, that reverence. And so, it was, and I grew up with some of the same stories that, everyone else did, the David and the Goliath, the Moses, the Red Sea, the Noah and the Ark. But we just had extra stories. Yeah. And so I didn't really understand the difference of it until going to, First Baptist Woodstock and sitting under a what I would consider at the time kind of a hellfire brimstone type of preaching. And that might not be fair to say, but compared to what I experienced before, it definitely was, because I'm like, why is he spitting? Why is he sweating? Why is he yelling? And what is this feeling in my chest now that I'm not comfortable with? And so I remember walking down the aisle when I was 14, after I had been baptized in the Mormon church as a Mormon, at 8 years old, you're supposed to be baptized. And so I got saved when I was 14 years old, and became a Christian. And then after that is when I really started to learn a lot about the Mormon faith, and coming out of it, kind of trying to discern what was true and what wasn't true. And I guess the best way to describe it is unlearning a lot of things. And I'm not an expert in Mormon theology by any means, but having grown up and experienced it, I wanted to have a good understanding that I didn't want to be wrong in what I believed. And, just for clarity for all the listeners, I don't believe the Mormon Church is true. My mom is still in the Mormon Church. I've got 30 cousins, so we're a bona fide Mormon family, and I'm the only male on that side that didn't go on a mission. So, and it's funny because me and my sisters, none of us are members of the church. So we all are evangelical Christians, is what I would consider us. So, but yeah, that's the background of my faith up until I was 14 in a nutshell right there. So,
dang, that's a lot to open up.
Well, that's why I stopped, because I was like, I don't know where you want to go with that, and we'll let the Spirit lead where you want to go with it. So,
where do I want to
did
go?
you know that?
Is it?
I did know that. That's
Okay.
why
I thought you-
something that's very intriguing to me about you, because a lot of Mormon friends that I've had in the past, and people that know are Mormon, are very super strong in their faith, to where, like, I mean, they know more. This is something that bothers me about a lot of believers that believe in Scripture and the New Testament and Jesus Christ and all that stuff, is that, man, Jehovah's Witnesses and Mormons will dominate most of them at when it comes to a discussion. and that bothers me a little bit, and I actually like try to read and listen to certain people about how to combat that in certain ways, just things here and there, but really I like discussing it and talking about it, instead of just saying, oh, you're wrong, I'm right, blah blah, because I think that those conversations don't really go
It's
anywhere
not a good
in a positive
apologetic
way. No
approach.
So like would you say, and if you don't want to answer this or it goes too deep, then it's fine, but like, do you think that the different theologies or between your dad and your mom, is that have something to do with their divorce or separation, or did your dad
No, I
feel
know
that
for
way?
a fact, and I won't go into that, but that was definitely not the reason.
Did your dad not?
So my dad was raised in a Baptist church.
Okay.
He lost his dad when he was 18. And so one of the Mormons, they preach families are forever. They believe like an eternal family. They believe in a predestination, which gets complicated if there's divorce involved, because they believe that, hey, you and Megan chose each other, predestination, like y'all chose each other, right? So how do you explain that if, there's divorced families and they get remarried? Because the whole premise of, and I don't want to go, too deep into it. Because there might be an expert out there that, says, I want to fact check that guy. But, they do believe that this, and, Joseph Smith at, I believe it was called King Follett's Discourse. That was the guy's name. At his funeral was quoted as God is, man may become, or God, I'm paraphrasing there, but, basically essentially saying that our God, our Heavenly Father of this earth, was a man, and we too can become gods of our own, fill in the blank. So, and essentially that's kind of their thought, is that they're going to become gods. And so, that's when you kind of get into the polygamy and the large amount of children, because they believe that, our God of this earth was once, a man, and now, so he's, we're all sons and daughters of this Heavenly Father. And, kind of pivoting from that, what I felt, in the best way I could describe growing up as a Mormon, and, we believe as Christians, as followers, that, my salvation 100% does not depend on any actions that I took, except belief and an acceptance. That's it. That's all, that act, in my personal belief, even that act is a gift. My decision that I was able to make was empowered by the Spirit to make that decision of acceptance of faith. You know, when you grow up in the Mormons, how describe, you know, the feeling that you have is that Jesus made the down payment, but it's up to me to keep the monthly installments. So, you know, you're working for that salvation. You're always having to keep good grace, where you know, as believers, Christ died for our sins to set us free to choose to be holy, as opposed to the other side of that coin with Mormons. I felt like, you know, I had to be holy in order to earn my salvation or keep up the good works.
You know what's crazy about you saying that is that I'm talking to certain people right now that they're not believers, and we talk all the time, and they bring it up to me a lot. And they, like, I brought this up in Corinthians where it talks about when you accept Christ and ask Him to into your heart and become, you know, give your life to Him, that the veil is removed from your face. And so when I told him that, he said, "See right there." He says, "Right there, it shows that you're forced to be the way you are." And what you just said about Mormonism is completely different than what you said about your experience with Christianity, or I don't even like saying Christianity, but you know what I'm saying, like believer. And so, like, it's funny because what they're explaining is what you just explained about that, but I told them, I said, I don't feel that way at all. Like, I feel like I'm not forced to do anything. I feel like I want to do it. Like, it's like I want to serve the Lord. I want to do this. Like, and it's like, and then you have the mercy and grace that they're forgetting about as well. Like, and so that's something that's hard for me to explain to them, is that I'm not forced to feel that way, the way you just described it.
Yeah.
My other question was, when you went to and accepted Christ and you started going to the Baptist church, did you, like, how hard was that with your many other family members? Like, does that cause a rift, or?
It was difficult in the sense of, you know, if you ever talk to a Mormon and you know, one, whether if anybody of outside of, you know, our faith that we're trying to witness to, you know, we call it, you know, apologetics or whatever you want to call it, that you're trying to, you know, show someone, spread the good news. That's what we're called to do. Without that a relationship there, I honestly, truly believe, and I've experienced that you're not really, you got to show them love to be able to share the love. And
that's how I feel.
And so, but on a Mormon, I would even say a Jehovah's Witness, I'd go as far as to say a Muslim, any of those that you're asking to consider another faith, that you're also asking them to walk away from their family. Because it's ingrained in that. Now, my mom, I think she was disappointed. I think she was hurt. I think she was, you know, kind of saddened, kind of felt like, why did I need to have something else? We have a great relationship. My mom is probably one of the happiest people, you know. We joke that she pees sunshine and poops rainbows.
Like unicorns.
All 4'7" of her. I mean, no joke. But she really is the happiest person. And I mean, anybody that's met her, she's, you know, I could share my voicemail. So, hi, and just very upbeat. I mean, but like, I love her. And there was a season of my life to where I felt impressed upon me to share. And those were never edifying conversations. In fact, I probably didn't handle them as maturely as I could have. But, you know, sometimes when we know the truth and we see, you know, when we see the light, we want them to see it as what I see it. And I couldn't, and I felt kind of, I don't know, maybe the best way to say released from that obligation to save my mom, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I get it.
But, you know, she still attends a Mormon church. I think she's had a coffee or two in her day, but maybe, you know, but I mean, she's still a faithful attender. And what's funny too is, this was probably when I was newly married. So, you know, in my late 20s, early 30s, I used to send missionaries to my house, which was really fun for me, because I had a season to where I was really, really sharp. And you know, when you talk about Mormons, Jehovah's Witnesses, understanding and know their faith, because they're very well read.
Yeah.
In the Mormon church, when you're a high schooler, you go to what's called seminary, and what we call seminary is different than, you know, what we understand in the evangelical world. But before they attend public school or whatever school they go to, they would go to church. and they would study, they would read together, and it was you were being prepared for, these high school kids were studying for, a couple hours before each day of this, every single day, and that was their seminary. So I always tell people, I'm like, if you choose to, have a conversation with them, you better really
Be on your
understand
game.
it. You better be on your game. And so I knew that, but also in the missionaries, if you encounter any missionaries, all day, they're in pairs, and there's usually one. And if any of them are knock on your door, you could say, where are you from? They're from either Idaho, Arizona, Utah, or California. Those I would be willing to bet money on any of those four. And you have one that's more seasoned later on in his mission, which is 2 years, and then you have a newer one. So whoever's doing the more talking is the one that you attack the other one. So I would, point, what do you think about this? And I felt confident to be able to put him in a pretzel, but then I realized that's not edifying at all.
Yeah.
And it was difficult, because then I turned and said, you know what, let me really try to witness to these guys and share with these guys, and let the Holy Spirit really prick their heart. And by about that time where I felt like I was seeing some results, boom, they're up for transfer. They're gone somewhere else. And so, I could just hope that seeds were planted during that time. I wasn't going to be the one that was going to reap that, but that was fun when she would send missionaries to the house, and my wife would answer the phone. Keith, they're here. I said, roll my sleeves. Let's do this. And then, another funny story, Jehovah's Witness would knock on our door one time, and, they won't pray with you.
Yeah.
I didn't know that, but
I found that out.
I grabbed their hand one time and I said, Father. Long pause until you feel them jerk, and I'm just like vice gripping on them, like, no, we're going to do this together. And because they pray to Jehovah, like we don't pray to the, and so it's I said, no, it's okay, we got the same God.
Yeah,
it's good, and they never came back. I don't know why. So yeah.
When you're talking about, I understand that. When I was used to try to witness or talk to people when I was younger, the older I get, that it's like I used to try to like prove them wrong and try to like debate. And the older I've gotten, when you're talking about spiritual maturity, you realize that doesn't. And so I've really come a long way in the last couple of years. When I talk to people, I don't get upset or disappointed if they don't accept or like what I'm saying. I just look at it as like, look, I just want to have a conversation. I don't want to say you're wrong or right. And I found out that a lot of people want to talk to you like that.
Well, I've learned too that they're not attracted to what you know; they're attracted to how you treat them. Mm-hmm. And I had to learn that the hard way sometimes, because, especially coming out of the Mormon Church, I started really studying my Bible, really started reading my Bible when I was 30 years old, April 9th, 2008, Jablonski. Speaking of living far away,
Tennessee.
Lives in Tennessee. He needed me to come in early for him one morning. This was back when we had one-man stations. And so I had to get there super, super early.
What was the date again?
April 9th, 2008.
Okay.
And so I was a believer, but I can honestly say I kind of was on cruise control, where I wasn't in the scripture, I wasn't in the word. I was a believer, and it's like, if you ask me, and I felt like I could give a pretty good testimony, and I had the Mormon card in my pocket that was always interesting enough to where I could really convince somebody, and then I did read my Bible, and once I did that, what I struggled with then, and I think it was because of coming from the Mormon faith, was a lot of legalism.
Yep.
Where I was puffed up because I knew a lot. I read my Bible, and I was. And I learned real quick that most Christians, kind of like you talked about, it's frustrating. Nominal Christians, they don't read their Bible. Mm-hmm. They don't know their Bible. You could. So that was something that would frustrate me. That was something that I would understand, and like really kind of, I wasn't really encouraging in that time too. But yeah, that's part of kind of like the growth up after that. I just had this. This, I don't want to say a vision, because that gives a different, kind of paints a different picture. But I did have this feeling where the Spirit kind of, like if I were standing before God, after my life had passed, and I had to give an account for the days that I lived on earth. And some of the questions that I actually got, just pinned on was, what'd you think of my creation? What'd you think of, the time, that you spent? And I can imagine back in the day, this is when we had DVDs, right? So
Yeah.
pop in a DVD and you had the menu, and it was the life of Keith. And so you could select which, scene that you want to play. And he asked me, he's like, what'd you think of my word? And I was like, that was very convicting when I had that really tug at the spirit. And I said I didn't have a chance to get to it. And then he flashed everything that I chose to do with my time in lieu of that. And that's when I really started taking the word seriously and wanting to make sure I understand what I read, and started growing more with that. And so it's still a journey today. So
When you did, I'll move on. So I don't want to beat you up with I guess converting and all that. But how did you feel as a child making a decision? Like, I can't imagine that's an easy decision as a young child who's been raised this way, and then you feel something different, and you look into that. Like, I mean, you said that when you talk to somebody like that, you're taking them from your family. Did you not think that yourself when you were?
Yeah, I knew there was disappointment, and it was from my mom. That was the only one that I really cared about, her opinion of being disappointed in me. And so beyond that, it couldn't compare with the Spirit calling me, and like just that tug. And I remember that night very well. And that was, before the church that we go to now. We don't have altar calls, so where they would sing, the invitation song, with 20 verses over and over and over until until you're like, okay,
Been there too.
okay, yeah. And so, but that was my experience. I remember Tony Evans was a guest preacher, and I remember walking down and I was like, ain't nothing stopping me. I'm going right there at that altar, and so I do remember filling out the card, and they slapped me and said, congratulations, you are saved. And so, but I've learned now to where it's, some circles that I've been in says, like, if you don't know the date of your salvation, you need to check yourself. You're not a Christian. And I don't necessarily believe that. I do remember the other day, and that was, we used to talk about, rededication. So I think that's the sanctification process, and some of us are on different paths and than others, and there's different seasons of that, and that's kind of how my journey laid out.
So was Tony Evans preaching when you changed your life? Like,
that's when I accepted Christ as my Savior officially at church.
So the Tony Evans.
I mean, I was at First Baptist Woodstock. It was
big.
It was big, and that was the other
church,
problem too. Is like that fed into a lot of so the Mormon Church, they have what's called a Fast Sunday, which is the first Sunday of the month. Growing up, you used to think, okay, good, this is going to be fast. It's going to not be as long. Well, I was so naive. Mistakenly did I think, well, Fast Sunday meant you skipped breakfast and you skipped lunch, and everybody would do what's called, I was a kid.
Yeah.
And they would bury their testimony, is what they would call. So, Mormon service, you would have a bishop that's over the congregation, and he wouldn't be the one that would necessarily give the message. We could just, point and say, hey, Clint, you're up this week. You're going to give the message. He could tell a story. He could come out of the Bible. He could come out of the Book of Mormon. He could, read out of whatever he wanted to. But this is his turn to speak. And then, but the Fast Sunday was we'd have a short message, and then everybody would have the opportunity to, the Holy Ghost, because that's what the Mormons call the Spirit. They call it the Holy Ghost. You would bury your testimony, and it usually sounded like, "Hi, my name is Keith, and I want to bury my testimony. I know this church is true. I know Joseph Smith is a true prophet." And then they would go, "Tell my family, and I did it." And so that's kind of how that would usually play out. And then everybody in the whole congregation have to do it, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this is not fast." And so, but going from that to the Baptist church, I will say the feeling that I had at the Baptist church, and this was just, and I want to give the asterisk or the caveat that a lot of this feeling might be on my own upbringing, but I felt like if you weren't a member of First Baptist Woodstock, you weren't a true believer. Like, we were doing it right. Nobody else. And again, that was the legalist part of me, but there was an air while I was, in that season of, everybody else was kind of second fiddle to us. And we had the big names that came and, preached up there, because Johnny that was when he was really in the prime of his years too. And, but between, Ravi and, even Johnny, I have learned not to place, my faith and my trust and like my man crushes, had to take pulled back, and now that he's lived his entire life, I would say probably my biggest influence that I listen to now is Tim Keller. That one's in, he says life's been completed, no scandals or anything like that. So, but yeah, that was kind of part of that too, my wrestle with it. And, I think one of the, you said something earlier that triggered in me, and I really appreciate the intro, because one of the things that I tell my kids is that I ponder a lot is, we all as believers, we don't, Christ, in his word says he doesn't want any that perish. He wants all to come to believe, and we all believe the same way. And so, and I've learned I want to live my life in such a way that it's attractive to one another. Why is he the way he is? So when you give me that intro, like, I really appreciate it, because I always tell my kids, you always want to think about, what it's like to be on the other side of you. How are you landing on people?
Yeah,
Because you remember that first impression of that day, and that's it's not like I have an intention. It's like, okay, I don't stare at the mirror and say, okay, you got a new guy. It's time to make a good first impression, because he's going to remember this one. He might have a podcast one day, and he might invite you on, and don't be a jerk to him, So I just...
You should see the next questions. No, I'm just kidding.
Bring it on. So...
No, but yeah, so, like, yeah, there's definitely something different, and I remember that. Like, I remember going up to 6, and I didn't know who you... I knew who you were from just, seeing you at, rookie school and stuff like that, but... one thing that also stepped out is I remember sitting at the table and us two talking, like, pretty late, and I didn't even know you. And as a rookie, sometimes they don't do that. Sometimes we the rookies get treated a little differently, and I mean, you talk to them, but it's more like, all right, so what are you gonna do here? What are you gonna do here? And what are you gonna do here? Which, like, you like, it's funny because I'm about to say you and Adamac's name together. But I learned two totally different things. But there's things that I learned from it. So much crazy, like, two different people, and they're both like really good things. And so, like, one thing that I learned from you, and I carry this into when I was a lieutenant and had my own guys in Newton, is when my guys are first come in, when they first get there, we have breakfast. So that's my thing, is we have breakfast every day. Lunch, everybody's on their own. Dinner, we're having it together, because I feel like to have a good family, we need to eat together, because that's where we're going to learn the most about each other at the dinner table. But after that, while we're at breakfast, I still do this even when they're my rookie after a year. I sit there and I ask them about them, like, so, what did you do before this, and what's your family life like? And I want to know everything about them, so I know how to treat them and how to I want to know about them, because I tell them this. This is why Dempsey is so connected to me, because no one ever did that to him before, and he had a rough life growing up. I didn't know any of that until I sat there and just asked him about himself. All these people are making fun of him when I get him. We're talking about how crazy he is, or he doesn't, whatever. And once I start digging in, actually finding out about him, I understand. Oh well, this is why.
Yeah.
And so when I remember us sitting around the table and talking really late at night, and I knew that was a big impact on me, because it was like, oh, this lieutenant, I'm just a peon. I've been here for a year at that point. I'm a nobody. I'm just a squad driver, filling out and doing PCRs in the back all day long. And so, but you treated me like you actually cared, and you asked me questions, and you talked to me, and we talked about faith. And I know you don't remember any of this, but I do. We talked about faith, and I knew there was something different, and that's why I always tell my daughters, I'm like, when you go out in the world, you want people to say there's something different about that person. I want what that person has. Like, what does that person have? And that's how I live life. Is like I just want people to see something different in me. You know, my boss all the time, he'll say, "Why are you so happy?" Or just, you know, he's kidding around with me, but I always tell him, like, you know why I'm happy.
Yeah.
Like there's a reason why you're asking me this question. And what I tell people is it's because I'm filled with the Spirit, and I just want people to experience that. I just want somebody else to feel that fullness in your soul. And it doesn't mean that we're immune to, you know, the things that the devil can stress us about, or, you know, the terrible things that are in the world. But I always remember that, and I've carried that with me. Like, whenever I'm the head driver of the station or whatever, I always ask, like, so what about you? And this, because I want to know about you. Because in the fire service, we call ourselves family, which I hate that seems to be going away a little bit. Because when I go to a station, when I got floated to a station, and they're like, no breakfast together, fend for yourself for everything, and it's like, oh, we might do this, and it's like, man, how do you, like, I don't know that culture. Like, in my firefighter experience, I don't know the culture of not having breakfast with my crew.
Yeah.
I don't know the culture of not having dinner with my crew. Like go fend for yourself. Like, no, what are we eating tonight? You know, who's cooking? Like, are we going to do this together? Like, what do you want to eat? And that's all part of, like, a family. And, like, one thing, like, I've always loved about you is that you treated us, you've always treated that culture as a family. Even when we became a captain. So, like, you know, in captain, he's got to make his rounds, because when he rides a car, he makes his rounds. And every time, well, I felt like it was every time. I don't know if it was every time, but man, he'd come to Station 11, and he would come.
Fun to hang out with. That's why.
He'd come in, and he'd sit with us, and you would stay there for, like, you know, and let, you know, if you had a call or had something else to do, but, like, he would come a little later, and he'd hang out with us, and we would sit there, and like, you talk to us, and you'd ask us our opinions, you'd ask us, like, you tell us what was going on, like what you knew, and all that stuff, and so to me, that, like, made it actually like you care. And when I left Cherokee, you know, Chief West asked me, is there anything we could do differently, or you know, what would you have to say? And I said a couple of things that I thought would make the department better, but one of them was that I wish the chiefs would make more rounds. I wish the chiefs would show their face. I was like, these guys, they wouldn't care as much about a raise if they thought they were appreciated.
Yeah.
Like, and that's what, like, I always remember you doing that. You used to come to the station, you'd hang out with, you talk. You wouldn't just check in, like, hey, y'all good? All right, well, I gotta go. You know, it was more like, hey, you know, you hang out with us, and so it actually made us feel like we were special, like we were doing something right.
Well, I mean, I enjoyed that, and I mean, truth be told, I'd look at the roster, and there was definitely some stations I was looking forward to visiting. You know, and y'all had a special crew. I loved Craig. I knew Craig for a long time. Chase was like, you know, a little brother that, you know, nobody ever had, and, you know, just God, he was fun. I mean,
yeah,
like,
he is.
His energy, I loved him. It goes without saying, Chris was just there was no one like him, and
No.
And I felt a kindred connection with you, because I knew out of that crew you're the light, you know, and they needed that. Well, and then you had one other that will live unspoken.
Well, see, we had some good ones, though, you know, because then we had, you know, oh, no, but when you were a captain of us, I guess, yeah.
Yeah. But regardless of that, I enjoyed that time, and I always, you know, I feel like a captain, especially when you're in a battalion we had several stations, battalion chief's daddy, right? So if, you know, battalion chief is daddy, and no one really kind of wanted, you know, daddy. And we have some great battalion chiefs. Then we have some where it's like, yeah, I don't necessarily want him coming around. But I was the fun uncle. You know,
Yeah.
I didn't have
the Funkle.
you know, so I didn't have to give you the expectations. So if I come in and you and Chase were laid out on a recliner asleep, I just sit behind you and I put some coffee filters on your chest and snap a picture and be like, gotcha, you know. And I have a whole album, by the way.
Oh,
so,
cool.
Yeah,
Definitely you walked in on me sleeping several times.
And so
Power nap. That's
you
what
know.
Chief West used to say. It's a power nap.
Safety nap.
Safety nap.
Safety
That's
nap.
what we call
Safety
it,
nap.
right? Yeah. You know, that's y'all had a good crew. That's why I came over there. I enjoyed spending that time. That's part of what I love about the fire service is the fellowship. You know, you talk about what's going on now. It's hard, and I sound like the older guy. And you ask the guys at 21. the last time I was on the car over there, and I go to bed 10:30. I don't feel like that's terribly early. You know, and a lot of time we have individual bunks at my station now, so I'll go back there and I'll read for a little while and then do that. But you know, the green top stations, they're all open bunks. I feel like that should be a quiet place.
Yeah.
Turn off your light, make your bed.
Not it. Yeah.
Don't have a phone conversation. Don't watch a show. It just drives me nuts. So they're watching a movie, and I feel like they're watching Godzilla versus King Kong in the sub Vegas. We're just thumping through the whole freaking station, and I feel the walls shaking, and I'm like, I just want to go to sleep. I wish this freaking. So it goes from that to they all come into bed. Not one of them quiet. There's no in this one thing. So it's like, you know, I have one son, and I give all them. You know, I try to give everything to my daughters, but my son gets the master's class because it's my responsibility to raise him up as a man. And I tell him, it's like, there's a lot of virtues that I want you to have, but if you don't have self-awareness, you're not getting any of these. You've got to have self-awareness, and that's one thing that just, it's like common courtesy. I mean, you know, come in, stop, don't Velcro your belt, and you know, and unzip everything. Like, let's come in quiet. Why you got to make your bed at 12:30? So you know, they come in there, they settle down, and I'm like, okay, they're finally quiet. And then you're here. I'll have to back up their mind. You hear. And like an every 18-second cough from one of the guys, and like kind of like the speakers pop, and just I would jump up. I didn't sleep at all. I was so pissed. I said, I was super mature. So I was like, I'm just going to mirror their actions. I'm going to do exactly the opposite of what they did, except I'm going to do it at 5 o'clock in the morning. So, and usually, you know, I'd have to take down my bed stuff. I'd be really quiet. Turn on the lamp, be it as loud as I can, let the door close, came back in and out as many times as I possibly could. I turned on the weather forecast to, you know, the volume was up to 11, and you know, Stover came out, and this is, by this time was just before 6, and he's looking at me, he's like, you okay, Cap? And I said, yeah, I'm fine. Why do you think that? He's like, you're kind of aggressive this morning. And I'm like, oh, am I? Let's talk about that. And he's like, whoa. So I say all that to say that, you know, sometimes I feel like I'm the old guy. You know, I try to get to know some of these kids, and they're about as dense as a piece of paper, and I'm like,
butts and seats.
You know, and you know, I don't think you'll listen to this podcast, so it's probably safe to say, but you know, you'll look at your tattoos. Hey, tell me about your tattoos. Anime. Cool story. I mean, and if you say anime about anything, that tells me everything I need to know about you. And usually the interest level that I have in you has disappeared. And fine, yeah, I'll go back on your TikTok, whatever. I don't care. I'm done talking to you.
Oh man.
And so like we had a kid. The kid literally came in, and you know, we're by the coffee table. I love, you know, the shift exchange. We're drinking coffee, hanging out, you know, busting each other's balls and stuff. And then there's one kid just coming in and out. I've never seen him, and I haven't put my uniform on yet. And I feel like, you know, that I've never been one of those guys that was like, hey, check the collar, you know. In fact, I ever since I became an officer, one of the things that I've tried to do for my drivers is get the wheel chalks. I always wanted to do it. You know, sometimes some of them it was irritating to them, so I like to do it. But other times it's like, you know, it's a small act of service that like they could say, you know, hey, just to do it. And so this kid's coming in and out, going in the refrigerator, not one word to anybody. Like, didn't say anything, didn't look at anybody. And it's like, I always felt like, and I would, you know, my son's interested in being in the fire service. You know, he's 15. And I hope I raised him well enough to where he'll come in there and say, hey, you know, introduce himself, you know, hey, how you doing? And it's like, and I feel like, and I probably should, you know, maybe this is my age. I'm like, it's your obligation to kind of, because you're in my world, you know. So like, I have daughters, and they could tell you, I hope that the other side of, you know, me, these guys that are attempting to date my daughters, who are my precious girls, and you've got 4, you know, and if they have daughters, I want to be someone who's, you know, they have a healthy fear of, and I want to make sure there's a respect there.
Absolutely.
So it's like I say that to where like you're coming in my house. It's your obligation to impress me. That's how I feel like with my, you know, as a dad to daughters, and a little bit as, you know, a captain in the department. I don't feel like you have to like. I mean, I'll give you respect, but just you're coming in our world, you know, and when I started, I was the new guy. I was 20 years old. They gave me a hard time. Like, where'd you grow up, Mary? Yeah, I might be your dad. And I'm like, funny,
Yeah.
And, funny story. You remember?
It's a lot more PG than what I was told.
Well,
Like
get
Chief
this.
Tilson.
Well, yeah. Well, Chief Dobson, Fred.
Oh.
Did you hear about this?
No.
Turns out Chief Dobson, one of the, he retired as a battalion chief.
One of my favorites. I love Chief Dobson.
He took my mom to prom.
What? Kidding.
Serious.
No.
Yes. So now then they're joking. They're like, "Oh, we didn't know Fred was your dad." Start calling me
my
Dobson Jr., Fred Jr.
Dang.
Like, oh man, I
That's
never
awesome.
live that down. And so,
Have you asked him about that, or have you seen him since he?
he lives like 2 minutes from me, and
Oh.
he brought in pictures of the prom. So,
my gosh.
So, he did electrical work on the side, and my dad was asking me, "Hey, do you know anybody who does electrical work?" I said, "Yeah, this guy named Fred." He's like, Fred Dobson. He's like, we went to school with Fred. So my parents all went to high school together. Fred graduated with him. And so I was just, it was different when I was the new guy. They didn't talk to me. But I was eager to talk to them. The
Yeah.
only time anybody said it to me is Smiley walked into the door like a minute before shift change, shirt half untucked, hair up to here. And he's like, it wouldn't go down this morning, so I told Darlene to wake up. But you wouldn't know anything about that, would you, Junior?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm like, oh, you got me there.
Yeah.
Because, and so he was, it's so like, I'm like, what am I going to say to that? I'm
Yeah,
a
yeah.
20-year-old virgin in the house. And
Yeah,
like, oh,
exactly.
Yeah, good one. And so, none of them talked to me. So when Fred, heard that, I was like, I got a connection with someone. I'm happy to talk to him because no one talked to me at all. And he's like, so your mom's, Denise? And I said, yeah. And he said, I took her to prom. I'm like, things got pretty serious.
I didn't know that.
So, yeah, he's riding up on the car one day. He comes visit me at 6. And this is before he made battalion chief. And he's hanging out talking, like you said, Fred, greatest guy. If there was a guy that took my mom to the prom in our fire department, you wanted it to be Fred. So
He's awesome.
Awesome. Well, he leaves, and right when he goes, he goes, "Well, I'm off like a prom dress." And I said, "What'd you say?" He's like, "Oh man, I'm all right." Don't take us. I said, "Fred, you can say that to anybody, but you cannot say that to me." He's like, "It's just like, but you can't say it to me." So yeah. So I'd make sure to tell that at his retirement party, and his wife was right there too. So.
Well, you got him back.
Oh yeah. Yep. So
He, I love Chief Dobson. He was a great guy. He had this thing. So, how old do you think he was when he retired?
I can't remember. I want to say he was close to 60.
So, Chief Dobson was Chief Dobson would show up to he would show up to our like fires, right? And he made a hook out of a hickory branch. Yeah. So he had a hook, and he called it Old Hickory.
Old hickory.
And it was
Creative.
yeah. And it was a hook made out of a hickory branch that he put a pike pole, like a little pike at the top of it. And I always told him, but he would, man, he
Lasted a one attic fire.
yeah. But no, like he would use that thing. Like, I mean, he'd go on scene and he would use, like, we have some very proactive, like, chiefs. And so one day, which later, like, he didn't use it that much. So one day I went up to him and I was like, "Hey, Chief, my hook broke." And he goes, "Your metal hook broke?" And I was like, "Yeah, I need to use Old Hickory." And he goes, "It's in the back of the battalion ride." And I got to use it on a fire.
Awesome.
Like, it was awesome. He let me use his hook on a fire. I was like, "Oh, this is freaking sweet."
I've
It didn't
never
break
heard
after
of-
one. No, it was actually made pretty sturdy.
That's awesome.
It was cool. I didn't want to use it on tongue and groove. Now, I probably wouldn't have made any tongue and groove. But sheetrock worked great. But yeah, but that brings me to real quick. Like, so what got you into the fire service? Why did you choose the fire service?
It wasn't anything glamorous or like a revelation. I mean, I went to Kennesaw State for a year after I graduated high school. I didn't like school. I didn't feel like school was for me. I didn't want a desk job, and it was one of those things to where it was like, hey, I mean, that might be neat, and my dad connected me with a couple guys he knew that we went to church with one guy, and at the time he was working at Cherokee, and man, he's like, greatest job ever. And anyone that you talk to was that. And my dad knew a police officer, and and then the fireman said, what policemen and firemen have in common? Both of them want to be firemen. And so
Right, Jacob?
Dang.
sorry.
Well, if I could go back 10 years, I would.
He just
I
admitted
would have
it.
chose
He
differently.
admitted it. It's
We
recorded.
just did it. Yeah, we had the other one already admit to it. Now,
There you
now
go.
we got both of them.
Boom. Got 'em. No, I mean, I think it was it was an honorable profession. It was one that I would be proud of. And, at 20 years old, I started trying out when I was 19. I was like, let's be honest. I thought it was cool. I mean, the ladies would like it,
Yeah.
I mean, like, well, you're fireman, oh, sweet, So, I mean, that was it. I wanted to land at a career, and I was ready to kind of just get out and start doing something. And the fire service is something that just kind of appealed to me, because one of the things for me graduating, my parents, after their divorce, I just kind of floated along. I played a lot of sports, but they had their own stuff that they had to deal with, so I wasn't able to have anybody. No one would push me, as a teenager, you need some prodding,
Yeah.
and I mean, like I joke now, like my son, he's 15, and it's kind of, there's one of those, the saying of better to rein in a Mustang than kick a mule. He's a Mustang, and so, which is a good thing. So sometimes we should pull that back a little bit, buddy. But I was the mule, you had to kick me, and no one was kicking me, and so. Next thing I know, I'm like, okay, I'm out of high school. I have, I'm working 3 part-time jobs, not doing anything with my life, and was able to land, at Cherokee. I tried out for Cobb because that's where I wanted to go because I grew up there, and that was just kind of like what you said. I was like, this is where I kind of threw my hat in the ring, and that's where I landed. So nothing glamorous or like, oh, I just want, to do that, but. I just knew it was an honorable profession that would, give you an opportunity to serve.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of like that too when I got in. I mean,
it's for the pay. Let's be honest.
yeah, it's definitely for the pay. What's funny though is I was kind of like a mule before, and once I got in, I turned into a Mustang. It's like it's weird how the professional do that, and then like after, a certain amount of time,
Especially that slick back hair they used to have. So,
man used to come in the station and be like, Fury.
yeah,
Because I would do stuff to get away with whatever I could on the dress code, and they say, "Oh, off the ears," and now, like,
oh man,
okay, all
it was
right.
off the ears.
Yeah, I don't have that hair anymore, unfortunately.
It was good days.
It was. I told my buddy today I buy like really expensive shampoo, hoping it'll grow back. I don't think it's coming back.
My dad always says that grass doesn't grow on a busy street.
That's
That's
good.
why I got a full head of hair.
But they so who would you say one or two people or whatever would you say were probably the biggest influences or like impacts on your fire career?
The first one that comes to mind is I would have to say Chief Vaughn. I kind of, it was one of those things, my fire career at the beginning, we only had 5 paid stations, 1, 7, 19, 20, and 10. And, we had 4 or 5 guys on the truck. And then when we took over the north end and they opened that up, they had the 1-man stations.
Mm-hmm.
And so the first few years of my career, I'm at station 1, I'm at station 20, and I mean, I was a fireman. I was having fun, and made sergeant relatively early in my career, and then I got put to a 1-man station, and I remember being told by a battalion chief. I was asking him, and it was really tough too, because I didn't come from the volunteer background like some of these guys did in the communities. And so there was kind of a civil war between the paid and the volunteers. And me being younger, I didn't really handle that all the best, but I got put one of the like really strongholds of the volunteer departments, but I was the one paid guy. And I remember asking my battalion chief, I said, why did I get moved? I mean, like I was the battalion chief at the time. Plymel was probably an early influence, and Early was my lieutenant, and I was a sergeant. Man, they sent all the problem people to us because we'd straighten them out, or they would either sink or swim.
Early.
And he was great, and I enjoyed being him. Well, Plymel retires. Early gets shipped off to 2 by himself. I get shipped off to 5 by myself. and he knows Station 5, but that's the worst house
Ugh.
in our. I mean, it's the station it's
Yeah,
awful.
it's weird, man.
I hated the station. I hated everything about it, and I'm by myself. And and my reply to like, why did I get moved was because we need motivated people like you at these one man stations. And I was like, that's a line. Just tell me I was the sorry sap that got chose, and I could handle that. So, and I said, and I was, that was probably my first cynical time in the fire department. And I said, well, that's a great way to take away my motivation. And it did. I mean, and I let it kind of beat me. And like, that's when, you come to a fork in your career, and like, I was on a really good path, and I let that beat me to where, and that kind of led into that 2008 moment where I'm at a one-man station. If you've ever worked at a one-man station, I say it's kind of like a 12-step program. First, you're in denial, and then you're in acceptance, and then you gotta go through these emotions. Then you become a full-fledged schizophrenic hermit, because it's like I'm like, okay, I could do this, and you get your own routine. You have to adapt. And I spent, a number of years by myself, and I really thought about quitting because I'm like, I'm a highly paid, highly trained house sitter is what I am.
Yeah.
I didn't run calls by myself. This is not fulfilling in the slightest. Young husband, young dad. That was probably, you want to talk about looking back at those times, the 30s being the sacrificial years. I joke and I tell younger guys that I said, I never realized how selfish I was until I became a husband. And then I really didn't know how selfish I was until I started having kids. And so, but I still was able to have that selfish time every third day because I brought my Xbox and I just played it because I wasn't running calls. You had to kill the time somehow. And that's what I chose to spend my time with for the longest time. In fact, I actually carried my Bible with me. Never did I open it for the longest time until that April 9th, 2008. And so I spent a lot of years doing that. And so that's when my career kind of took a turn. And, we get a lot of guys, and I don't have to name the names, but I'm sure you got them at Gwinnett too, that, this department, they ain't looking out for you, and I kind of bought into that a little bit, but it was just tough. I mean, I didn't feel like I was a part of the fire service. And ever since I kind of went there, so I was like, okay, so, one of the early influences was probably my wife, if I'm being really honest too, because I didn't, that mule came back, no one was kicking me. And I'm like, okay, well, and so she's like, you should test, you should promote. I'm like, I don't want to, even went to paramedic school and dropped out. Made it through, and we got pregnant with our second, and I dropped out. But then I was like, okay, I'm going to study for lieutenant. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to try to reset my career. While I reset my career, I get promoted to lieutenant, and guess what my first assignment was? Lake Arrowhead.
Oh, my gosh.
So if you know anything about Lake Arrowhead, it's just a gated community. It's, retired, nearly dead, heaven's waiting room, Yeah,
it's
And it's, beautiful place. But,
really nice.
Again, it's like, oh, maybe I'll get assignment to where I feel like I could have a crew do this. And I got sent to 17 for 3 years under a battalion chief who I love, but you didn't ask for a transfer request. You did not. And spent 3 years, and then an opening came up at 6, and I said, hey, I've never asked for anything. I got to get out of here. And so like I really just kind of floated along for there. And then Chief Vaughn was my battalion chief when I was at 6, and I was there for 7.5 years. And it was kind of like what you said. So by this time I've got 15, 20 years in my career, and I've just kind of floated around for the latter half of it at these slower north end stations. And he really challenged me. He leaned into me. He kind of gave me a great example of leadership. He kind of taught me leadership by example, instead of like, saying, hey, you need to step up, which is really what he probably should have said to me. But I felt that. And then this is around when I'm turning 40, and there's something, in you, like, when you start hitting your 40s, where my kids are a little bit older, I'm starting to figure it out. You're starting to, your 40s are kind of, you're starting to mature a little bit. And he's really kind of what kicked me in my butt to like start embracing. I made captain, and my first assignment was 16. And that was probably the best thing for me to really kind of
station too.
Do what now?
Pretty busy
house. Too. Yeah, and we only had 2 guys there. And he's talking about a crappy station. You're in a trailer inside of a bay, and so
because it was condemned. Like it was
the
condemned.
building's condemned. It's still 8 years. And it's just not it was neat being downtown and there was no station like it. It was a busy house. I felt like a fireman again. And I was like, okay, I'm doing it. And, you talked about Adamak, no one's going to put me in the class of Adamak and several of those other guys that are like that as a fireman's fireman. And I'm okay with that. But like,
me neither.
I want to be in a class of like being just a genuine, man. And so that's, so 16 was there, and I attributed a lot of that to Chief Vaughn kind of prodding me. So I was grateful for that. And then we'll end up at 15 on the, riding out to pasture. So.
Yeah, I always, I love Chief Vaughn too. I didn't get to have him long in my career. Well, I guess about, 5 years, 4 or 5 years. When did he retire?
It wasn't long after, so 2019 is when I got promoted to captain. And I think he was probably a 21.
I was about to say, actually.
No, it was actually after that, because I think one of his spots that he opened up a battalion spot, which opened up a captain spot. So it was around 2019, 2020, if I remember right.
So what would you say then, like a passion that you want your guys to take away from your leadership? In the service. Well, I mean, it could be,
that wasn't in the script. You didn't give me that. Just kidding.
It's right here. I just added it.
As you type it in.
Yeah, if you were looking at the...
No, I mean, that's a really good question. If I'm being honest, and what's coming to my mind is the same thing that I would want to leave for my family and for my kids. Just I try to live my way to where, like I tell my kids, you can follow my example. I really, really, I work hard on trying to, be an above approach. But again, it goes back to what we were saying. I was called by God to be holy, and I get to be, and I choose that. And I do. I want to, whether it's the new guy that comes in, and and I don't remember those encounters, to the guys that I've like genuinely, they know that I care about them. I want to be known, and like carry on, just like just to bring in some of that brotherhood, that camaraderie, like through diet and stuff. It's hard to like do those breakfasts and dinners, like we talked about.
We have,
and when you work at a 1-man station, then even at a 2-man station, it's kind of hard to like have that fellowship, have that dinner. And at a 3-man station, you're kind of like, man, it gets expensive to go buy all this stuff for dinner. So, but we sit down and eat, and we play cards every shift. So
we used to do that too at my old shift.
Yeah. So that's one thing that we do, and we have that camaraderie, and we have that time together, and so that's probably the legacy that I want to live, is just how I treated people.
Would you say that that's the opposite, like the camaraderie and everything is? What would you say that something that concerns you or is upsetting to you that you're seeing in the service right now? Would you say it's the lack of that, or
yeah?
What would you say?
I mean, there's a couple things I've seen. You remember the old Station 9? Mm-hmm. Some of those stations, and I have a theory that I have, and y'all could tell me what you think about this, but is that each station has its own DNA. Now, within that DNA, there's a we'll say call it a spectrum. It could go towards the side, but like 17, the DNA is you're owned by that community. It's a slow house. You can't really a Kevin Hamilton's style of leadership is not going to work at 17.
Oh, no.
Okay, so you see what I'm saying? So that DNA, he can't change that. He's going to have to kind of come underneath that and adapt. However, a more passive Keith at 17, it wasn't going to work at 16. So I had to kind of adapt to that, because that DNA of that station it produces salty guys who we're in the crap. We're running all this stuff. We're over here. We don't have time to do hydrants because we're too busy running calls. And so each station has its DNA. Station 9, the old Station 9, you had nowhere else to go except you were on top of each other. But what that did is it created a camaraderie among those stations. And when you're busy houses, you run calls, that reinforces that time that you're spending with each other, because, let's face it, like we're now experiencing things together. And so we've lost some of that with the way the stations are set up. You can disappear. And you're like, where's he? I don't know. I haven't seen him for hours.
Especially these single bunks.
They're back there chilling on their beds, on their phones, and they just disappear. Mm-hmm. That's one thing, and it's the phones. I mean, like I know that I'm going to sound, a little bit, but like even the older guys, the older guys, I mean, they're on the death scroll, and so it's really difficult. And for me, even at a slower station, we'll take care of our stuff and we do our thing. I could say I hardly ever watch TV, and I'm at one of the slowest stations in the county, but I've got a routine where we stay busy and we do things. But like the younger generation, and I'm sure when I grew up, they talked about our generation and the generation before that generation.
Yeah.
So I don't want to just say it's this generation, but there is a disconnect to where I don't see a lot of emotional intelligence, if that makes sense. Because there's not a lot of this,
Discussion and stuff.
I love having sitting down in conversation, but man, there's some guys that don't have the capacity or the bandwidth to be able to sit down and have a conversation without having to look at their phone.
I mean, a lot of that comes because of phones and stuff. I used to say that all the time. Like, I think, we have technology in our world that can be used for vast improvements and just incredible things like social media and as simple as like our TV remote. That turned us lazy. Because then we wouldn't have to turn the knob anymore. Yeah. And so all these things like our phones, but what it's taken away from a lot of people and what I've seen is like this communication and it's like I told my daughters, I'm like, y'all need to I make them when they're talking to somebody, they have to look them in the eye, because I know that like at some point in their life they're gonna have to have an interview. Yeah. And they're gonna have to like talk to somebody, and they're gonna have to be like, on point and knowledgeable about something and not get distracted. And a lot of things is the communication ability of people nowadays is terrible. Yeah, the bar's low. It's very low, but a lot of it is because they don't have to communicate with a person anymore. They can communicate however they want electronically. So like when they get in front of people, I mean, online it's like they're a keyboard cowboy,
Yes, and that's the thing is like I've learned that there's an art of confrontation. And my oldest, that's sitting right over there, she's the queen bee at it. I mean, she's great at confrontation. She sometimes, you could choose. All right, let's be a little bit more diplomatic about this, but she doesn't, and a lot of people don't know how to handle that. They can't handle face-to-face confrontation. And the other thing is then on us as leaders and as supervisors, we have to figure out how to communicate with them in a way that, if you correct them, they're going to get butt hurt, and then they're going to be
or close or shut down.
And so it's like, okay, let's talk about this a little bit, and and it's and that frustrates me because and I don't want to sit here and say because they're soft, because anybody listening to this and not seeing me, it's not like I'm Rick Elke, this hardcore guy, so but it is there's an emotional softness there too that I don't see. And like I see guys that look like Tarzan, but they can't crank a chainsaw. And there's so Sandy Springs, Chief Sanders told me, like, he's like, yeah, we put rock climbing walls in all the station because this generation has weak grip strength. And I'm like,
that's pretty cool.
It's not a bad idea.
That was what he said. He said it does build some camaraderie because there's some competition in there. He says, but it's weak grip strength. But I saw a guy. He was a newer guy and owned a gym. Man, that chainsaw was wearing him out, and it wasn't in the K-12, which I'm like, that thing could be a humble you real quick. But I was like, let's see. So I mean, I've seen a lot of that, and so it's I don't know. Like I one thing that I would love, the opportunity if my son came in the fire service raised me, had a big part in raising me as a man, and taught me a lot of things. My dad wasn't like a mechanic or a handy guy. I mean, like Mario, you talk about Mario. He taught me how to change brakes. Dude. I mean, literally. And so it gave me the confidence to where, like, my daughters have something wrong with their car. I was like, I can handle that. I could take care of that. I wasn't like that, but the fire service taught me somewhere, And that's one thing that I love about the fire service is we could all come together because, something I don't, and you have something that you could contribute. And, amongst all of us, there's like that synergy of there where it's like, man, we could figure out some stuff together, but there's less and less being brought to the table by some of these guys, except, a sleeve full of anime tattoos. Sorry.
A wonderful movie comes to my mind with this, and I'm sure that some of y'all are a little more familiar than others, but Frozen 2. I think it was Anna. She's like, Hey, Olaf, what's that thing that you always say? He goes, technology is going to be both our savior and our demise. And she's like, no, the thing about water. But that sticks out in my mind because, like,
That's
you know,
really
it's
good.
a funny little thing in a cartoon,
Such
but it's
a man
kind
of
of
wisdom.
kind of true. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of coming to fruition right now.
Oh,
you
no,
know,
definitely.
you're talking about that, and it's a good thing too. Like you can get on YouTube University
It's a
and you can
tool.
learn how
Absolutely.
to do
Source
brakes.
for sure.
But are we willing to actually get on there and do it? You know, and I've noticed that too in just my shorter time in the fire service. Is like you got people that are. Well, there's a lot of people willing to come learn, but there's a lot of people willing to teach too. But there's not as many people that know as many things to teach.
Yeah.
And
Simple things. You know, and I quote Proverbs 12:1 to my kids a lot. He who does not take correction is stupid. It's a great one to quote your kids. They can't argue with that, right? But you know, but they're not. Something that they need to have is a teachability. Is, you know, sometimes there's a chip on their shoulders, like, you know, I don't, and like, you know, when I see a guy using a metal spatula on our nonstick skillets, I'm like, why do you hate our skillets? He's like, what? And I'm like, and there's, you know, and granted, no one taught him, so I have to try to back up a little bit, but it's like, you know, they get their feelings hurt, and it's like, oh, he's mean, and I'm like, well, I mean, you're stupid, so we're even.
Well, you know, I had to learn this when I started coaching high school ball. First time I coached was in 2008. Before I got in the fire service, I coached for 4 years at a Christian high school in Grayson. And then I started coaching at the school that my kids went to for a while. And I coached there for 8 years, I think, pretty much 8 years total. And like I was finding out that a lot of them didn't know baseball. Like it was a small school, so like I had to literally teach them, like several of them, how to even throw a ball in high school baseball. And then we developed into actually going to state championships and everything. But that the first year we went to a state championship, like one of the things I had to deal with is they were calling me like toxic and all, like, you know, like they were getting their feelings hurt and stuff like that. And I told my dad, I was like, man, I got to learn a totally different way of coaching.
Yeah.
Because the kids I used to coach in 2008, like I was hard on them, but they knew I loved them and they never talked like that. They respected me and they wanted to do good for me. And then I'm just treating these kids the same way here. This was in 2015. And so, I mean, we're only talking about like 7, 8 years difference. And these kids are like, I mean, they're fragile.
It's different for sure. Like I've noticed that, you know, in serving in youth group, I had a high school group 15 years ago, and I remember like coming in there, kicking the door down, like, you know, like I'm about to teach you guys some stuff. And they responded. Like I guess the best way to say is I challenged them, and they wanted the challenge. They needed the challenge, and I applied the same thing to this group today. They don't want to be challenged.
Yeah.
At least the circle that I'm seeing, it's kind of like, why you challenge me? You know, I mean, like,
Well, they take it offensive. Like they get offended.
They take it
about
offensive. And here's the scary thing, and it's not so much that they don't want to be challenged, as there's more of an apathy there. There's kind of a they're really ambivalent, I guess is the best way to say. They just don't care. You know, I mean, like it's not like I remember I didn't want to disappoint some. Like,
That's
man,
how I was.
I didn't want to disappoint you. So even though I might have been kind of the mule that needed to be kicked, man, I would make sure I didn't want to disappoint you.
Yeah,
You know,
that's how I was.
I would rather daddy be angry than disappointed, kind of thing, right? Now this group,
They don't.
whatever.
Well,
You know, I left a kid on a call, and he floated over, and I have a rule, and I don't know about you guys. I don't like them sleeping in the recliners. You know, now if you've been around for 20-something years, you know, and you're a little older guy, you've earned it. You know, but if you're a newer guy and you need a little safety nap, you know, go back in the bunk. I don't like you, because the thing is if someone comes in through the bay, which we keep the bay doors open, what's the first thing they're going to see? You know, you kind of sitting like a little, you know, hood rat, like emasculated with, you know, hoodie over your head, sleeping on your side, and it's not a good look.
Yeah.
So go lay down.
Yeah, I get it.
We got our stuff done.
Yeah.
Well, we get a call, school bus versus a work truck. Yellow Creek Road. We're gonna have like a 3-minute response time up in our area. Man, I'm bolt out of the truck. We get there, and I'm like, "Where's our guy?" And Tipton, Tipton was with
Tip.
me, and he's like, I don't know. So we're gonna go. We just left him, and I'm like, I'm not waiting, and in I kind of, justified in my mind. I was like, he's brand new. He's not going to really be able to add anything anyway. I've done this by myself. I've got Tipton who could lift up the bus and throw it across the road.
Yeah.
So we left him and we come back. He's mopping the kitchen. He's mopping the kitchen. You could tell, I'm sorry. And I said, you should be. You're here for only one reason. Is this to run the calls? So, my punishment to him was I gave him 2 index cards. And, I grew up with The Simpsons. So I don't know if you remember The Simpsons at the beginning, Bart Simpson's writing on the chalkboard, I shall not do this, I'll show this. Gave him an index card. I said, one's for me, one's for you. I want you to write on every single line, sign it, date it. I am here to run the calls. I'm here to run the calls. I'm here to run the calls. So that was my punishment to him, where it's like, well, maybe one day that you're going to have to leave someone and you'll remember this. But I've never missed a call. I never got left on a call. It's not hard. The tones go off and you go.
Yeah.
And so, call me crazy, but yeah, this is different.
Yeah, it's
I've left a guy unintentionally before on a call. I was riding the seat. We got dispatched to a gas leak inside, so we send a company truck and a engine. I'm riding seat on the engine. We pull up. Truck gets there behind us. It's Captain Weldon. He's laughing. He's like, "Did you forget something?" I'm like, "Don't think so." He's like, "Well, you sure?" I'm like, and this guy, he's just been slow getting on the rig all day. We're getting off on calls, and it's kind of to the point where I'm not like thinking, hey, I'm going to leave this guy intentionally, but I've just been getting out and we've been going and doing our thing, and if he shows up, cool, whatever. I had no idea he wasn't there. We'd been there for a couple minutes. I thought he was just still in the rig and hadn't got out yet. Oh, he's like, "Yeah, you forget something?" Points to him. He had to ride over there on the truck. We left him in the bay.
Send a message to him, though,
Not intentionally, but yeah.
You leave a guy by himself at a station with no rig.
Yeah.
That's not a good day.
Yeah, I when it came to my players and stuff, I would tell them they didn't like the fact that I like to challenge them. And so they would ask me questions, and most of the time it was this, they were doing something so stupid in my mind. And then they'd ask me a question and I would return it with a question. And they hated that because then it challenged them to either answer my question or to go do some research and figure it out. And they didn't want to do that. And then they would say, "Why don't you just answer the question?" And I'm like, well, I want to be Christ-like. And in Scripture, Christ always answered a question with a question. Yeah. And they would be like, "That's not why you're doing it." And I'm like, well, kind of not. I'm not gonna.
A little bit.
But, like, I'm just trying to be Christ-like, But yeah, you're right. Like, there's a lot of things that are going on that it's like, and how do you, but again, how do you fix that? Like, what are you supposed to do with that? Overall, just because if you put all your emphasis in I learned this from coaching too. If you put your emphasis in the ones that don't really know and you're trying to get them caught up to speed, you're neglecting the ones that have actually worked and tried their whole life to get to where they're doing, and they work hard and they're doing whatever they can. It's like you're cheating them, but you also don't want to leave somebody behind. Like,
Yeah, I can see that being more of a challenge for a baseball team since you've got so many at one time. Whereas, like, even as a busy department that's got big stations with a lot of guys,
yeah,
more than likely you're not going to have more than 1 or 2 rookies at a time that are like brand new.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So hopefully pouring into some of the newer guys will in turn get them to pour into some of the newer guys. So it's kind of trickling down, if you know what I'm saying. That's my hope anyways, is that if you can kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? If you can kind of encourage them to show initiative, maybe they'll encourage the next person to show initiative too. You know what I mean? Whereas like a whole baseball team, it's going to be hard to do that,
Yeah.
Whereas like from my experience with the fire service, like you get a rookie comes in, we may have a rookie for 6 months, and we may get another one behind them. But we've had 6 months with that guy to put into him and teach him or her before we have another one come in. Whereas baseball team, you get them all the first day together. Actually, and it's funny you mentioned baseball because I ran into my favorite baseball coach I ever had, my high school baseball coach, and he used to crawl our butts.
Mm-hmm.
But I loved him.
Yeah, me
He was
too.
a
Yeah.
great coach. He taught me a lot of stuff about baseball, and he taught me a lot of stuff about life. And I ran into him at a wedding, and I got talking to him, and he doesn't even coach anymore. And I was like, "You're not even coaching?" He's like, "Man, these kids are too soft. I can't coach them like I want to anymore." So he doesn't even coach anymore. And I'm like, "Man, that's kind of sad, But it's fun. I just thought it was funny you mentioned that. I hear that everywhere.
But that's one thing that I thought when we talk about King, rough around the edges. We mentioned him earlier, but like one thing that I loved about King is that he was hard on his rookies. He was hard on people. He was rough around the edges. But then he was really good at later explaining,
Building you back up, breaking you down, building you up.
And he was so like
He was a good mentor.
very, very creative in what he did too. Like, and you're talking about somebody who could do anything.
Yeah.
Like that guy, like he taught me how to clean a carburetor.
Right.
Like, I mean,
Yeah.
he taught me how to, that guy, me and him wired his motorcycle together, put lights all through it. Like like he did things with us, like, and taught us things. And you know what? Another thing too is I moved twice while in the service, and both times I moved, who was sitting at my door to help me move? Chris King. Like, and I never asked anybody. He just knew. We moved from Loganville to Monroe one time. To where I live now. And I remember we were sitting there just talking about it. And I was like, oh, guys, like I got to move. I'm dreading moving. I already did this 2 years ago. Now I got to do it again. And, this is going to stink. And he's like, I'll help you move. And he started laughing about it. He started laughing. I was like, nah, he goes, I'll drive to Tallahassee to help you move, whatever city he decided to choose that day. Every day it was a different town. Like, yeah, well, we'll go to Nashville. I'll go over to Nashville and help you move, whatever it was, like, and you just kind of like roll your eyes. I asked Megan. The next day I woke up to get moving. And I had mentioned when I was going to get up to start moving because I was like, I don't want to get up early, blah, blah. And I woke up. It was like 6:30, 7 o'clock. I went over to get some breakfast. I started cooking some breakfast. And Megan got up, and she goes, who's parked in front of our house? And I was like, what? And so I went out to the front door, and I looked out.
Chris.
He's sitting out there on my curb. And I go out there like, what are you doing? He goes, well, I woke up at 4 o'clock this morning so I can make sure I got to, Alabama. And, and he goes, I've been sitting here for about an hour. I went to Waffle House and I'm like, he goes, bud, like your help's ready to get going before you are. He goes, you better get dressed. And I'm like, you didn't even say that you were coming over here. Like, he's like, well, I'm here. You better hurry up because I am going to beat that afternoon traffic. But that's what I'm saying. Like, that's like, I couldn't believe it, man. And so it's like, but guys like that, not only is he willing to help you learn something and teach you something, like we weren't allowed to really touch rigs, fix them or anything,
right? Yeah.
Like they did back in the day,
yeah.
But who did show us how to fix them, and we made work out of a lot of things that no one knew about?
Yeah,
Chris King.
Yeah.
And me, DeLay, and Scoggins, and Chris would go out there, and we would put together whatever we needed to put together. Dude, we had a hose come out on our radiator. A hose came out on a radiator one time as we're driving down the road. We pulled over at, the tow truck.
Malden's.
Malden's.
Yeah.
We pulled over there, and we're standing there, and Chris gets under there, and he's like, I can fix this. And Dilly's like, don't touch it, King. They're on the way. And he's like, nah, I can fix this. And he went up there, he fixed it, and then when they got there, Dilly's like, yeah, we still need a tow. No, it's not fixed. It needs to be. He's like, what are you doing, King? and but it's just this. But that's where he popped back in my head because I remember like so many things that like he was really good at. He could tear you down, but yeah, he was very good at later on. Showing you, hey, bud, this is what you got to do. Like, and then like he would involve you, like he would cook. And then he, if you asked to help, he's like, nah, bud, I got it. But you can watch and learn. You know, that's what he tell you. And it's just like simple things like that, but that's a perfect picture of what we're talking about.
Well, you know, I think part of the solution is just reminding everybody at each station, each crew, that it is a family, you know, and everybody has a role. And, you know, obviously the younger guys are the ones that need to be raised. And, you know, none of us have the knowledge of, like, say, you know, not all of us, there's not many Chris Kings left like that has just there's a Renaissance man and that knows everything. But, you know, I say that to say, you know, there's all of us can, you know, be raising up, you know, some of these guys and just let them know that we care about them is, you know, part of it. So trying to teach them maybe to not want to disappoint their own guys, because that's what's going to be a good motivator, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you talking about King, it just reminds me of some of the guys that I've had, you know, I was so fortunate to work with some of these wonderful mentors, and you could describe them in such a similar way that you describe King. Mm-hmm. And that's why when you're talking about, you know, I kind of butted in about, I didn't really know King, but I could imagine like how he was based off of some of the guys that I got to work with. And they were awesome about, like, they you know, you're talking about them being hard on rookies. They were hard on rookies. They would break them down, but not out of like sport or anything to try to make them feel better or just to be mean. They would do it for a reason, and then they would build them back up. And there's a lot of guys, I think we get stuck, unfortunately, sometimes in the breaking people down, and then we're not building them back up. I think that's the key part, is the building back up, teaching them how to do things the right way, teaching why it's important, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think we get stuck unfortunately, in the fire service, it seems like we'll eat our own. I think Captain Will mentioned that. We're bad about that. We'll eat our own. And that's not the way that should be. It should be, hey, if somebody needs to get checked, or somebody, you know, needs to knock them down a peg or two, or getting a little big for the britches, do it, but build them back up, you know, kind of deal. And I think that we need to focus more on the building up, you know, with moving forward, you know, find a way to kind of connect with these guys, which sounds like, you know, we try to do that anyways, try to get to know them a little bit, make them feel like we care about them, because we do care about them, make them feel like they're part of the family, and build them up from there, you know, whereas maybe a little bit different than it used to be. You may not be able to be as hard on them, but, you know, I think that they'll see that, and I've noticed that with a lot of, myself included, you know, like, you're willing to go work with somebody a little bit more when it seems like they care about you.
Yeah.
And so I've definitely appreciated the guys that have taken the time to get to know me, you know. I've been very fortunate in my career. I've worked around some really awesome people.
Yeah.
But
Captain, I think you said it, like, we got to know our roles, you know, and like, if you've been in the career long enough, like, you've got to have the maturity and the confidence to be willing to teach. And then, but on the, you know, on the flip side, if you're younger, if you're starting out in your career, like, you got to have the maturity and the humility to say, I need help.
Oh yeah,
or, you
definitely.
know, like, I'm willing to learn.
Yeah.
And I think too, man, like, the same applies in, like, our spiritual life. Like, at some point you got to have that. And I think we've talked about this a little bit before too on the show, but, like, you got to have that confidence and maturity level to say, hey, like, I'm ready to disciple somebody. Yeah.
But the other
flip
person
side,
needs,
like,
they need humility.
Yeah.
Too.
Humility.
They need to have that to be able to be underneath it too.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that's, you know, that's, and that's kind of the stage that I'm at right now, to where it's like, I really have the passion that I have. I'm trying to figure out my role and my niche, as far as, like, man, I really want to see young men, even men, you know, just us grow as men, as husbands, as fathers. And because to me, if, you know, and we've all worked with people, even, you know, in law enforcement too, fire department. I mean, it's an intimate thing. When you see a guy and his home life is not well, man, that's tough. That's really really hard. And there's just a lot of people hurting out there too. And, you know, you reference kind of the stuff that we carry sometimes, and that's one of those things that I'm grateful for. I haven't gone down that dark path. I haven't experienced that emotionally, to where I've really felt like I've got a lot of baggage that I've carried through this career. And so that's where I'm passionate. It's like, I just want to help see people grow as men. But and really the bottom line is it's got to be, they got to want to do it too, you know. Because we could have all this wisdom, or I would say knowledge, because wisdom I would believe is, knowledge applied. And but they got to be able to willing to learn, to want to do it.
Yeah. Well, last but not least, okay, we're going to get into like what I've started calling the like raw reality of experience. And so basically it's optional, but like, or we're going to ask you something of a call or something that in your career that you've ran. It could be your worst call, which we talked about earlier. We don't really sometimes like talking about that. Or it could be a funny call or a good call, but a call that like, that comes to mind that you think about that's like, nah, I'll never forget that call.
So I'll go down this path because I like to make fun of myself sometimes. So, we don't need to open up some of those other Pandora boxes.
Yeah.
So I'll keep it lighthearted. I'll keep it short. We had a regular that we had to go to, diabetic, just called us all the time, and it got in a rhythm to where it seemed like it felt like it was every shift. So we get called out to him. We're going over there and just kind of running through, hey, what's going on today? All this stuff, waiting on the squad, which our squads are ambulances. And I hear the ambulance backing up, and it's like a Pavlov's dog trigger. You hear the ambulance beep.
Oh, yeah.
And I try to say, you think you could walk to the ambulance? Turn around and look. The guy kind of looks down, throws his hands up.
Didn't have legs.
He didn't have any legs.
Oh, my
I
God.
don't see that coming.
I was like, my bad. I said, I'm gonna go outside. I was with Elkie. Comes outside.
Well, you just pick him up with one arm and take him out there.
He was like, what was that? I said, I don't know. I said, I'm tired of the guy calling me. I said, the ambulance backing up, and it's just triggered. Like, hey, can you think you can walk? And he's like, no legs. Sorry.
Dude, we had a call.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a guy who's diabetic. Okay, he's an older guy. And we got a call. It was cardiac arrest, like person down, And so I go out there, and we get there way before the ambulance. This is Newton. We get there way before the ambulance, and this guy's deceased. Like he passed in the middle of the night while he's asleep, But he's a diabetic with no legs. Okay, so he's in the recliner, and he's laying in the recliner, and it's a crappy call because he's passed away. His family's crying. They're going crazy and everything. And, not fun call to run, but the ambulance guy gets there. The medic walks in and he goes, all right, so where's the patient? I said, he's right there in the recliner. And he looks at me, he goes, is it a child? And I'm like, no. He goes, why is he so little? It's right in and I was like, he's a diabetic. He has no legs. And the guy goes, oh. And I'm like, dude, you could have pulled me outside to say that? Come on, bro. But yeah, he thought it was a child. And I was like, he goes, well, why didn't you say, he's thinking, why didn't you say this over the radio? And I'm like, well, it should have mattered at that point, I don't know, man. But this guy, I was like, he doesn't work there anymore. By the way. Yeah.
This brings up this guy. Same situation. Older person that passed overnight. Family's there. Some of the guys are over there talking with family, kind of, trying to console them. And he's, I don't know how to forget this. He's standing next to me. And he goes, "Hey, man, you want to buy a couch?" I'm like,
what the?
Read the room, dog. This is not the time. And no, I don't.
Buy a couch?
I don't need a couch. Even if I do.
Is it a sleeper or is it a...
Dude, I got to tell you.
You know what? How'd you know? I've been actually on the
man, there's some characters. I'll tell you who it is after the podcast. But we were standing out there, and this lady. So I was at 24, and if you remember at 24, there's a couple horse farms.
Yeah.
And so they would call us out there, and we'd have to get these horses up. And some of these horses are they're so old that they can barely stand. And so we're out there every shift. So it gets annoying. Okay. Because then we got called for Station 12, our specialty station with large animal rescue. They come up with a tripod. We're out there for 2-3 hours trying to lift this horse that's
going to fall again tomorrow.
Yeah. That really should just be taken out to the back pasture, to be honest with you. And so we're sitting out there, and And he's like, where's the chief comes out there and he's standing over there. We're all standing over there, and this horse is like getting up, and the horse goes, it's like gargling and barely can stand up. And he sits down and he's standing out there, and he looks over the guy, he looks over at Bernal, and he goes, oh, I've seen way more action in the strip clubs than this right here. He goes, and then way less moaning. And the people who own the horse are standing right there.
Read the room.
Like, right there. And we're like, oh, we're definitely getting written up for this. Like, when I did the report, I'm like, I am not responsible for what was said on scene.
I can appreciate a well-timed, distasteful joke, just like anybody.
You gotta know your
I'll tell you
audience.
what's the worst thing? Ring doorbells. You walk out and make your little comment.
Yeah.
You think it's just the guys, and the next thing you know, you turn around and you're like, oh no.
Yeah. I hope they don't look
the
at that.
batteries are dead.
Yeah.
Definitely. So, anything else?
I'm sure there is, but I got a 2-hour drive. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I really appreciate you coming. We're
Absolutely.
Yeah, man.
we
Glad you had me. I
got a
appreciate
couple of little bits that we do at the end, and then we'll finish her up. But I think we have this one thing where Clint, he can't sing worth a flip, but he picks out really good songs with a great meaning.
I'm going to prove you wrong right now.
Oh, well, I mean, the Bible does say make a joyful noise. It doesn't say it has
It's joyful,
to sound
all right.
good.
Y'all may not think it's joyful, but it's meant that way. So. All right, so this one I know we've mentioned before, and I also know that I've mentioned about potentially doing some songs that aren't like what you would consider like a Christian song. And I don't know why, but this one has come to my mind recently. All right, and you'll know exactly what it is when I start reading the lyrics. And now I'm glad I didn't know the way it all would end, the way it all would go. Our lives are better left to chance. I could have missed the pain, but I'd have had to miss the dance.
Yep. You know that's my jam.
Yeah, I know we've talked about it before.
Absolutely.
And I don't know, just for whatever reason that one's come to mind. I know we've talked about also before, like our time with our loved ones, is such a blessing and such a gift. And unfortunately, when that time comes to an end, we're sad and we grieve, which is not a bad thing, but I think it's so important, the perspective. Like, look at that as a gift. The time that we had with these people was such a gift. Whether that be, it's never going to be long enough. Whether that be a short amount of time or a long amount of time, it's such a gift, And then the old saying that comes to mind too is, it's better to have loved and lost than to have never loved at all. Mm-hmm. And I believe that, and it changes a lot for me. Think about my perspective. One of my best friends was my grandfather, and when he passed, man, it tore me up. But I was so blessed to have the time with him, man.
Yeah.
I had so much time with him. And he passed away while my wife was pregnant with my daughter, my first one. It would have been his first grandkid. Mm. And to me, I was like, man, I wish he could have held her, and at least known her. Because I remember one time, I can't remember what the news was. It was so insignificant, but me and Carrie were going to tell we were like a family birthday party or whatever. And he's all excited because he thinks we're about to tell that she's pregnant. And that wasn't the case. And I just remember him being so excited. And I remember being so bummed that he never got to meet her. And I was like, man, looking back, I was looking at it the wrong way. And it's okay to grieve. I was like, man, I should have been more thankful. And I am thankful for the time that I had with him. But that could have made that a little bit easier on me at the time. Like, hey, let's look at the positive. Like, he taught me so much, and he instilled so much in me that I can instill in other people now. I can instill in my daughter, even though she never met him.
Yeah.
She can, I can tell about him, and I can also teach her some of the things that he taught me. And I think that can kind of translate into the fire service as well, whether that be stuff that's directly relates to firefighting or just, stuff. We got people coming up behind us. I want to do a better job of trying to be a better man, a better godly man, a better example of that. Sure, I want to be a good driver. I want to be a good firefighter. I want to teach you how to do the job if you're new, but also I want to set a better example of being a husband, a dad, stuff like that, a believer. And I think that that's kind of a good challenge for myself is sure, we may walk out of the station the next morning and they're a better firefighter, but I don't want it to be that. I want you to be better all around. Captain Weldon was the one that we had on before. I know that I mentioned he takes the time to go through the book Extreme Ownership with his guys, and just reading through that, you can take so much out of that leadership book that you can apply to being a dad, that you can apply to being a husband and stuff like that. So that's kind of where I want my focus to be moving forward as far as my career. You know, I want to teach guys, I want to encourage guys to be able to do the job well, but I also want to be a good example and help them figure out how to be a good husband, father, you know, so far. And so that song to me is like a good example of like, we start with our perspective. Let's look at things as like with thankful hearts, you know, like thankful for the time that I had with my grandfather, thankful that whatever, you know, the case may be, thankful for the opportunities I had, thankful for the times at a slow station that made me appreciate my times at a busier station, whatever the case may be, you know. And I think that a lot of it just boils down to your perspective of how you look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. The relationships that we have in our life, it's what gives meaning. You know, I mean, like I remember looking at the script, you what are your influences, and I thought about the fire service, but I also thought like in my walk in my life, and I think about my family's probably been a big influence on me because it's that accountability of making a good name, you know, having that and really, you know, having those relationships just calls you to a higher calling.
Absolutely. You know, it says tomorrow's is not promised, and sometimes we realize that when it is too late, and sometimes we realize that fortunately when we do have time, you know, like sometimes I get frustrated with my kids and I'm like, that was so stupid. Yeah. You know, like I might not wake up tomorrow, and the last thing they have is to remind me of me getting onto them about something. And so but the dance, what's crazy is, you know, Garth Brooks sings The Dance, that song. But what's also awesome is my favorite song of Garth Brooks is, which you
I
can't
Got Friends.
Yeah,
That was actually the next song
I have
that
that
played
too.
after this.
I have that too. And but my favorite song of his is not even that popular of a song, but it's called The Dash, or like it's called The Dash. I'm pretty sure that's the name, the title, but that's what it is. It's that little dash there in between, and the whole song is about the dash between our dates of our birth and our death. And you know, it's a great song. It's hard to find. I can't find it even on YouTube. It's like muffled, because you know how Garth Brooks, you know, you can't find his music unless you buy his actual. So it kind of stinks, because then you can't get some of these songs.
Right.
Like that's one of the songs you can't find it anywhere unless you have the
I've
actual
never heard
record.
of those.
Yeah, so and you can't even buy his record on like Apple Music or anything. And so that stinks, but it goes to the kind of same thing. Like, you know, I've always said I don't, when it comes to firefighting, like I'd love to be known as a great fireman or everything, but that wasn't my main objective. My main objective is just, he showed up for work with a good attitude, and it was motivating, positive, and did the best he could. I don't care if the best I could wasn't like this BA fireman. I don't care if that is, but I want people to know that like I cared about them more than I did the profession. And when, like I said this before, when I became a lieutenant, my goal wasn't to be the best lieutenant possible. It was to make all my men better lieutenants than me. That was my goal. And that's always been my goal. And I had to lose 2 friends in my life to actually figure that out, because I knew I wasn't treating them that way. And so I want to bring this up too, talking about Cap here, is that when I lost my two daughters that Megan lost in pregnancy, and you know, she had to give birth to them because they're so far, both times, like I remember people who sent me out, because I didn't want to talk about it. I wasn't posting that on. I posted about all that a year and a half after it happened, because I couldn't talk about it. I didn't even want to face it. And so, but you know, word gets out, and people would text me, and one of the people that texted me was Cap, and it's just as simple as, I'm so sorry you're going through this. I'm here if you need anything. And I get texts from him like that all the time, which helps influence me, because you know how I am. I'm always trying to I want to send texts to people sporadically on holidays and just let them know that they're not alone, that I'm thinking about them and all this kind of stuff. And when he texts me those things, it actually pushes me and influences me to remind me, hey, I need to reach out to somebody else. And that's why I like the relationship we've always had. And we've never even been stationed together. This is just formed from like him coming over to the station and us talking out in the bay or on the pad or in the recliner or wherever we were. And it's just this kind of but I have relationships like that with other people too. And it just goes to show you that some of the times the most influential people don't have to be, you don't know who you're influencing. You don't have to be stationed with these people to be an influence on them. At training, and Berryman, man, that's another thing is like you're always in a good mood for most of the time. Like you're always on training, you're positive, and that's what I like to do as well. And I try to stay that way as well. But we need people because, like you said earlier, we get beat down, and sometimes you need somebody like that to help boost you back up. So, but that's one of my songs. Sometimes
it definitely came to mind. And I think about that song a lot. I love that song as well. I remember, hearing it as a kid and not even really understanding what it was about, and then hearing it throughout my life and kind of understanding the song a little bit more. But anyways, I figured that'd be a good one to fit in there.
It's a great one. Thank you. It's great.
That's good stuff, man.
You got any prayer requests?
I don't know off the top of my head. Just threw a blank. I don't know. No, I don't have any. I really do appreciate you guys having me out here, though. And,
oh man, I can't believe you came. Like when you gave me, it's just funny. I reached out to him. I don't even know how it came up, but it came up, and I invited. I think we were talking about something. And I wanted you to come on, and I'm like, I said, he's like, oh, well, tell me some dates y'all can do. I'm like, look, man, if you're depending on us,
yeah, I thought you were like, no, I don't really want you.
I'm like, if you're depending on us to come up with dates, it ain't gonna happen. Okay, you need to give us dates, and then we have to just figure it out. And so, but you should see the text he gave me. It's literally like 20 days in like August, and like he's like, "You need some more for September? Or do you need to push that to September?" I'm like, no, I think you gave me enough days we could choose from.
Well, I mean, I didn't know. Sorry.
That worked out. And we really do appreciate you driving all the way out here.
Oh yeah, man.
More than we could put into words. We definitely appreciate.
Yeah, no, I love what y'all are doing. I was glad to be a part of it, and it was great meeting you guys, especially. And so I appreciate y'all having us out.
So y'all got any prayer requests?
Yeah, so my wife's cousin, Mike, they got back from the beach. He'd been sick, had pneumonia, and just all kinds of stuff going on. Well, it turns out he's in AFib, and they've had all kinds of trouble getting him out of it. He was in ICU for a little bit, in the hospital for several days. But he's back home now. Seems like the medication's doing what it's supposed to be doing. He got shocked multiple times. They never got him out of AFib.
Dang.
He's having to wear like a heart monitor, stuff like that right now. He's 48, I think.
Oh, gosh.
48 years old. So I'll just keep him in your prayers. Oh, and he's got triplets. They just turned 18, and they're moving to college right now.
Dang.
So, anyways, it's just a stressful time in their house. He's a teacher. He's supposed to be going back to work right now. Kids are supposed to be going off school. So keep kids in your prayers, because I know that they're worried about leaving with him. In the best of health. So. And
you said this is your wife's.
So it's Kara's cousin's husband. But
okay.
I claim him. He's my cousin. He's a good dude.
Sorry, I'm putting it in. I don't know if y'all remember, but okay. BB had it unspoken. I actually talked to him today. He said that if we could keep that rolling.
Absolutely.
He said it's still kind of hard. He didn't tell me what it was, but he says there's a lot going on. So just keep that in your thoughts. All right. You got anything, Jacob?
Nothing new.
Okay. All right, cool. Well, I guess we'll go ahead and wrap it up. I got all the prayer requests down. So like if anybody has any prayer requests, or if you know anybody else, let me know, because I put them all down. We pray for them. It's a big deal to us, and I know that we've said that before on the show, so we're not making it up. That's why I'm sitting here delaying and looking like an idiot, because I'm trying to put it on here so we can put it on, I can have it documented down. So it doesn't go on deaf ears. Trust me.
That's right.
We love y'all and we care about everything. So, so I guess we'll wrap it up. All right, I'm gonna pray. Dear Lord, I just I come to you tonight, just so thankful for everything that Cap has done for me personally, things that he's known about, but things that he just doesn't know. And I'm always reminded of the things that we will never know, that we implant into people, and that we plant seeds, and just the kindness and fulfillment that we might bring on to somebody. I tell my daughters every night to be a light in a world that has dark spaces, and but most importantly, just to try every day to make somebody smile. We never know what a smile can do, and I've heard stories before where somebody smiling at somebody saved somebody's life because of the desperate desire somebody might have had that we had no idea, but just to make them feel like they are somebody in their life, that there's somebody that actually noticed them, because they're not invisible. And none of your children, none of your people that are created, they're all in your image, and we're not invisible to you. And Lord, I just pray that you'll help us, through this podcast, but also through our lives in general, individually, where we go, that people take something away that's positive and something that can encourage them into seeing something different within us, just seeing the fulfilled life that you bring to us, and that you have given to us, that filling of our spirit. And it's just that thirst that people desire. Lord, I just am so thankful for that what you do for me personally in my life, and the joy that you bring into my life, Lord. Thank you for all of us being having the opportunity to be fathers to the people and families around us, and especially our own family, Lord. I love the fact that Keith brought his daughter tonight just to hang out and be with her. When he asked me, I just couldn't imagine. I was like, oh, of course. Like, I just smiled and almost had, felt like I wanted a tear come out of my eye, because that's how I feel with my daughters. And I know that a lot of that comes with, your spirit inside of us as well. And we're so grateful for that, Lord. Please help them and keep them safe on their way home. Lord, please allow us to stay strong and have that great positive influence, and just know that we are so thankful for him coming this way and being with us tonight, Lord. We love you so much. We pray for all these prayer requests that are on our list. We know that you know every single person by name, and even the unspokens, and we pray for that, Lord. Thank you again for this studio, Sam Bear Collective, and everybody who's involved in everything they do for us here. And we love you so much, and raise your name up in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right, Jacoby.
Well, Cat. Oh, you good? It's
Okay.
all right. It don't
Yeah,
matter.
you're good.
We're with Adam now.
Yeah.
It was a blessing to have you here, brother.
I appreciate it. Thanks.
Thanks
Yeah.
for taking the time to make the drive and be with us.
Yeah,
For
absolutely.
sure.
Dude, I'm so glad you came.
Yeah.
It's freaking awesome.
Yeah.
I've been waiting for this one, man.
Yeah.
Like, I told him about it.
Well, that's what I told Ainsley. I was like, how long do you think? I was like, I don't think I'm that interesting, so I don't know. I don't know, but it's just, I don't know. I just, where I'm at and what I want to do is, and you asked for a prayer request, and I almost felt silly. It's like, man, we're in a season where we're blessed right now, so I'm very grateful for that, because there's been times in our life where I'm like, man, we're in it right now, and but God has been faithful. God's seen me through, and I'm really trying to learn and to walk with Him, and read and one thing that I heard Tim Keller say, and this is probably the last thing that I'll leave you guys, is when you read Scripture, see what it's saying about God, and then see what it's saying about you too, and just trying to have that walk. And I've got a sermon that I recently heard from him that I sent to my kids, and offered all three of them $100 each if they would listen to the sermon, take some notes for like accountability, because it was on the Lord's Prayer. And he broke it down in one sermon, and it left that much of an impact on me, on like what I want it to do to propel my prayer life going forward. and I felt like it was a worthy investment to give to my kids, and I'll send it to you guys. I'm not going to offer you the $100, but yeah, I mean,
Clint doesn't need it. He works for Gwinnett.
Just come from the guy who's bragging about how rich he is now.
Oh yeah, right. Shut up.
He's got the money because he got the mandatory.
I just work for the fire department now. I just work for the fire department now because it's so much fun.
Oh yeah.
And I'm just here. Correct me if I'm wrong, boys, but he said I wouldn't even care if they paid me.
Oh, I did say that.
Yeah.
How blessed are we to have a job where we feel that way about
Yeah.
it, for real.
But yeah. No, I appreciate you guys though, for sure.
Yeah, thank you so much. All right, I guess we're gonna wrap this up.
Yeah, we're gonna get out of here, guys. Thanks for got to clap.
Yeah.
Not again. Well, you didn't have to in the first place anyway.
This isn't the Mormon church. We can clap.
That's right.
I thought you were like,
I'm sorry. I'm
I thought you
sorry.
were clapping to end it.
No.
Ready, break.
All right, we're gonna get out of here for real. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, obviously YouTube if you're watching this. Hit the like, subscribe button, share with a friend. You can reach out to us also via email, respondcommunity@gmail.com. Again, as we said on the last episode, send us a story. Let's make this more lighthearted. Those were good stories at the end tonight. I really enjoyed that. So send us a story via email. Be funny. It can be serious. A lesson learned. We'll share it.
Yeah.
We'll share it and read it on the show. Mm-hmm. So, but anyway, that's all I got.
No, I'm good.
Feel good?
2 hours, man. He's got to go.
Yeah. Peace.